Okay, imagine this. You step into a boardroom, big meeting, high stakes, and sitting there next to the CEO, ready to make decisions. It's not a person.
Yeah.
It's software.
Yeah.
A self-governing AI. Sounds a bit like science fiction, right? But that's what we're diving into today. We're looking at sources that discuss how fast these autonomous AI systems are developing for, well, top corporate jobs. The autonomous director. Our mission here is to cut through the noise and see, how close we really are handing over the corporate keys to an algorithm.
And it's moving probably faster than a lot of people think. This isn't just some futurist thought experiment. Go back to 2015. The World Economic Forum, they made a pretty specific call. They predicted the first AI system would actually join a corporate board by 2026. We're basically right on that timeline now.
Yeah, and we've already seen some, let's say, early movers testing the waters, even if maybe they started out a bit promotional. Like, remember back in 2014, Deep Knowledge Ventures, that Hong Kong VC firm, they said they had appointed a system called Vital, validating investment tool for advancing life sciences, as a voting member on their board.
It's exactly a voting member. And then, 2016, Tieto, listed on NASDAQ Nordic, they appointed an AI system, Alicia T, as a top manager for a new business unit. So these early examples may be symbolic sometimes, but they really highlight the core issue. The job of corporate director is one of the last roles that legally still needs a natural person, a human being, but the tech is getting there. And the legal arguments, the foundations for an autonomous director, they're advancing really quickly. It's driven by, well, huge leaps in machine learning, obviously, but also some pretty sophisticated thinking in corporate law.
Okay, let's dig into that legal side then. If the law usually says human director, where's the wiggle room?
Yeah.
How can legal scholars even start to build a case for an AI director?
Well, the sources point to the top-level stuff. The global standards for how corporations should behave, the key thing is the G20 OECD principles of corporate governance. They're like the benchmark, right? And they don't actually say a director has to be a physical person. The focus is all on the function, what the director does.
Function
Like providing strategic direction, managing risk, making sure there's accountability, not whether the director is, made of flesh and blood.
Okay, but hold on. Isn't that a bit simplistic? I mean, sure, the structure might allow it technically, but don't directors need, human judgment, gut feelings, for those really tricky calls like moral risks or reputational damage? That seems like something a machine can't legally replicate, at least not yet.
That's the exact problem legal thinkers have been tackling for decades, actually. This isn't brand new. There's history here. Back in the 70s, Mayor Dan Cohen talked about the personless corporation. He suggested an automated company could totally pass a kind of corporate Turing test, automatically reinvest profits, sponsor charities, do all the legal stuff without any humans pulling the strings.
Right, so the company itself just keeps ticking along legally,
Yeah.
even if the management's all code.
That's about it.
Yeah, that's a big shift in thinking.
And then Lynn Lepucki pushed it further with the algorithmic entity. He showed that even under existing U.S. law, like in Delaware, the structure doesn't absolutely demand a human manager. An artificial entity could potentially manage it. His point was, even without changing the current laws, the legal setup for these algorithmic companies, it's kind of theoretically possible already.
Okay, so this needs new words, right? We're way past just automation. What terms are people using now for these legal entities wrapped around software?
Yeah, the language is evolving. We hear things like the self-driving company, Armour and Ida Mueller use that one. It draws that obvious parallel with self-driving cars, right? A big technological jump. But maybe more significant strategically is CorpTech. That term's from Enriques and Zecha. And CorpTech isn't just, using AI for spreadsheets. It's about deliberately building fiduciary duties, the core legal responsibilities of a director, right into the algorithms.
So moving governance from human guesswork to reproducible math.
Pretty much. Auditable, structured logic instead of just intuition and precedent. And then Martin Petrin took it, well, maybe to the extreme. He talked about the fused board.
Fused board, what's that?
It's where you basically take all the traditional human roles, CEO, CFO, the board members, and consolidate them all into a single unified software algorithm.
Wow. A single algorithm running the whole show. What's the supposed advantage of that? Is getting rid of the whole human hierarchy, the politics? Does that actually help the company?
Well, in theory, yeah. The big claimed benefit is cutting out agency costs and conflicts of interest. The idea is a single algorithm programmed with one clear goal wouldn't have the internal squabbles, the slow decisions, the biases that, let's face it, human boards often have. So the consensus among these legal scholars seems to be the basic methods for defining an autonomous director. They're developed, they're sort of accepted in academic circles, but the heavy lifting now is actually changing national laws to make it work widely, effectively in practice.
Okay, so the legal theory is there, the academics have kind of paved the way. But let's step away from the theory. What's happening now? How are companies actually building this stuff? The sources suggest there's this quiet revolution happening, mainly down two paths. Path number one, the Digital Command Center, the DCC. So this approach seems to be about centralizing decisions, automating a ton of stuff, but without officially calling the system a director. It's like top-level operational automation.
Yeah, and the classic example given is ADNC's Panorama DCC, the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company. This thing processes real-time data from, over a dozen subsidiaries, and crucially, it uses AI, these smart analytical models, plus other tech, to get instant operational insights. It's essentially a digital factory managing a huge multi-billion-dollar operation on the fly.
And you mentioned other tech. The sources highlight things like digital twins and blockchain being key here, right? How do they make it act like a director without being one? Digital twins, that's like a real-time simulation.
Exactly. Real-time digital models of their physical assets lets them run instant what-if scenarios, assess risks immediately. That's part of a director's duty of care, right? Understanding risk. And blockchain. That gives them an unchangeable, shared record of data.
Why is that immutable ledger so important for, like, a board function?
Accountability. A director has to act on good information, do their due diligence. If an AI is making or influencing decisions, you need a perfect audit trail. Blockchain basically ensures every piece of data, every risk calculation, every decision point is logged transparently, can't be tampered with. It provides that legal backbone proving the system knew the company's status. Okay, so that's path one, the big central system. Path two is maybe more common, at least starting out. It's about automating specific functions bit by bit rather than building one giant brain. Accenture apparently has this three-stage model they talk about. AI starts as an assistant doing reports, monitoring things. Then it becomes an advisor suggesting scenarios, making recommendations. And finally, it evolves into an actor actually making decisions, like setting budgets.
Right, and we definitely see that assistant advisor stage happening already. Salesforce is a good example. Mark Benioff talked about using their AI, Einstein, in staff meetings way back in 2018. He told this story. A manager gives their report. Sounds good. Qualified person. Then Benioff turns to the AI and says, basically, Einstein, what do you think? You can imagine the tension in the room, right? Let's see what the machine thinks of your report.
Yeah, and the AI's feedback in that story was blunt to totally objective. Einstein apparently questioned the manager's plan just based on the data, said something like, I don't think they'll hit those numbers. That's a really powerful advisory role because it cuts through, internal politics or just respecting seniority. It's just the data. But it's going beyond just advice. There are examples of full function automation, like dividend policy. Apparently, machine learning algorithms have been shown since around 2010 to be pretty good at supporting or even figuring out the optimal dividend policy. That's a core board function critical for shareholders being handled by stats.
That's significant. And what about this idea of AI picking human directors? Research using machine learning to predict who'd be a more effective board member than the ones humans pick. What's the machine looking for? And is it fixing human bias or just automating it?
Well, the research suggests it looks for measurable traits linked to better company performance, things humans might miss. It can correct for bias, but, and this is the big but, it totally depends on the data it's trained on. If the history it learns from only features successful white guys, guess what? The AI will probably just recommend more successful white guys. It can amplify existing bias just as easily. But the main point is the technical ability to automate even director selection, it's there, it's mature. Plus, you see current tools, ERP systems like SAP Digital Boardroom, they already offer things like intelligent meetings, instant data analysis, sophisticated what-if planning. It's already supporting boards in advanced ways.
Okay, it really does sound like we're maybe not halfway there, but well on the path. We've got the legal theories, we've got the tech tools being deployed, but giving software this much power, especially autonomous power, we absolutely have to talk about fairness, accountability.
Legal director. The requirements have to be just as strict as for humans. The sources emphasize three big ones: non-discrimination, transparency, and accountability.
And transparency seems like the immediate technical hurdle, the whole black box problem. If this AI director makes a decision that turns out to be awful or biased and costs millions, how do we find out why it made that call? The sources mention bias can sneak in at, 3 stages? The data you feed it, how you train it, and the actual programming.
Right. And regulators are definitely trying to push back on the black box. The EU, for instance, is pushing this idea of a right to an explanation, basically trying to force developers to design algorithms so they can be explained, audited, understood by outsiders. But, and this is a really important point in the sources, there's often a trade-off, a real tension. The highest performing machine learning models, the most complex ones, they're often the hardest to explain. Simpler algorithms are easier to interpret, sure, but they might not be as effective at hitting complex corporate targets. You see this with systems like Compass, used in the US justice system, accused of racial bias, but the algorithms themselves. Commercial secrets makes external audits incredibly difficult.
So if cracking open the code isn't always feasible, what's the alternative? How do you ensure they're not discriminatory? The sources talk about independent testing, right? Like qualified auditors.
Exactly. Rigorous, independent testing and auditing. It's like submitting the compiled algorithm, the finished product for black box testing, similar to how NIST tests facial recognition tech. This lets an outside body verify that it meets core principles: fairness, non-discrimination without forcing the company to give away its secret sauce, its IP.
Okay, stepping back again, connecting this to the bigger picture, this whole drive for autonomous management, it's really about competition, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Werner Vinge's idea of the technological singularity kind of applies. If these AI management systems are just flat out better or more efficient, then trying to ban them or slow them down just means someone else, another company, another country, will adopt them first. The sources are pretty clear. The companies that master this first, they get a huge, potentially unstoppable competitive edge. It creates a self-reinforcing loop.
Yeah, and you can't talk about efficiency gains without talking about the human cost. We see big companies like IBM openly saying they plan to replace, what, up to 30% of back-office jobs with AI in the next few years. That scale of job displacement, that needs more than just a corporate plan. It needs a societal response.
Definitely. So what does it mean for society? Well, on one hand, autonomous systems could actually be an equalizer. Think about countries or regions that lack deep pools of experienced managers, human capital. This tech could give them a way to compete globally, maybe level the playing field a bit. But the big challenge is managing that transition. The displacement is real. It needs serious thought about programs for upskilling people, maybe exploring guaranteed income ideas, or integrating the human capital side into company goals more formally, like making it part of ESG metrics, environmental social governance.
That's a tricky one, though. How do you program an AI whose core logic is probably optimizing for efficiency, economics, to genuinely prioritize S&G, social governance? Those things often conflict with pure profit maximization.
That's exactly where regulation has to step in, defining how the AI's goals incorporate social good. And it brings up that huge question: legal liability. If the AI director messes up badly, who pays? Who's responsible? The simplest route, and the one seeming to gain traction, is basically manufacturer's liability. Treat the AI like a very sophisticated tool, not a legal person itself. This seems to be the direction in the EU's Draft AI Act. Responsibility falls on the supplier, the distributor, the user, the humans behind the system. That way, the people who designed and deployed it remain accountable for what it does.
So putting it all together, from those early ideas of a personless corporation to these massive digital factories like AD&OC's DCC running things now, the big takeaway seems to be the legal and tech foundations for AI taking over top management. They're pretty much here, already mature. And it's being driven hard by the chase for efficiency, for competitive advantage. Regulators are playing catch up.
And if these highly effective autonomous systems do create that feedback loop, more efficiency, more dominance, it leaves us with a pretty profound final thought, doesn't it? Maybe the ultimate test of human corporate success in the future won't be about climbing the ladder or managing people in the traditional sense. Maybe it's about shifting from our current culture of consumption and hierarchy to mastering a culture of mathematics, being able to properly create, manage, audit, and crucially communicate with the AIs that might soon be running large parts of the world. That could be the real skill set for the next era, something to chew on until our next deep dive.